oh my God, what a game we had between Alabama and Georgia, Dalton. Number 4 Alabama beating Georgia 41-34. And based off the first half, we're like, this is a rout. Alabama was up 28-0 in that first half at one point against Georgia. And then Carson Beck, after playing horribly in the first half, which I'll get into in a second, he stormed back and led Georgia on a furious comeback. And at one point, after being down 28-0, they took a 34-33 lead with about 2.5 minutes left. And then right after that, the first play, Ryan Williams scored the touchdown, and Alabama ended up winning the game and getting a pick in the end zone to seal it. Dalton, this is billed as the biggest game of the year going into it, and this might have been the best game of the year based off what happened last night.
Absolutely. I mean, let's do it again. Let's do it again in
twice more. Let's do 2 more times.
Maybe in the SEC title game,
and national title,
maybe in a playoff game. I mean, maybe you imagine that in a home playoff game.
Yeah.
I mean, do it either in Tuscaloosa or in Athens or wherever. Again, I mean, I would take that. I would take it every week, first of all, but certainly in a playoff game in a do or die scenario. Yeah. I mean, and they played like it last night anyway. Both of those teams knew that getting off to a good start in the SEC with as stacked as it is at the top right now, so important. But I mean, no, just what a game. There's not much else you can say about both teams. They're 2 elite teams that just went at it to the very end.
Absolutely. So let's go over the grades from that unbelievable game. Let's start off with the winning team, Alabama. So the highest graded player was actually Jalen Milroe at a 90.9. We're doing something different now, the PFF review show. It's kind of the same as what you and Trevor do on the NFL show. We're going to give you the 5 highest graded players outside of the quarterback, and then we'll also give you the quarterback grade no matter how well he grades in this game. So Jalen Milroe was the highest graded player at 90.9. Ryan Williams, the 17-year-old true freshman receiver, we'll talk about in just a little bit, 81.1, the highest graded player outside of Milroe. Jahad Campbell, the highest graded defensive player at 78.3. Red Morgan at 76.9, another true freshman for Alabama. Malachi Moore at 75.2, and Damani Jackson at a 73.1. Let's go over to the Georgia side of it and see how they graded in this game. Number 1, Smile Munden Jr. at a 76.7. Number 2 would have been Carson Beck at a 73.2. Chaz Chambliss at a 70.7. Colby Young at a 69.8. Jared Wilson at a 69.1. And Ernest Green III at a 67.9. So, Dawn, for you, what was the stat that really told the story in this game?
More so than stats that we usually give of one team, one team doing this to win the game and one team doing this to lose the game. To me, it was just more about just an explosive game that we had between one offense that found it early and one that found it late. And these two teams combined for 19 explosive pass plays that went for 15 or more yards. Georgia had 9 of them. Alabama had 10 of them. And I think part of the story, though, is the splits on those, where you had Alabama had 7 of their 10 in the first half, and they were just teeing off in the first half. 30 points it was at halftime?
Yes.
30 points at halftime. And then you had Georgia had 5 of their 9 in the fourth quarter as they staged that comeback. I mean, at the end there where they took the lead with Dylan Bell on the huge play over the middle. I mean, just that's what you have is the two teams just throwing absolute haymakers at each other all night, I should say. Carson Beck with a 14.8 yard average depth of target, a career high for him. He threw 17 deep balls in this game. Completed 5 of them, which considering deep balls and huge average depth of target on those is about average. 5 for 17 on deep balls, and I don't think you would never convince me. I would have thought Jalen Milroe would be the guy throwing 17 deep balls because that's what he does. He actually only threw 3 but completed all 3 of them. I mean, you just had these two teams just threw heavyweight shots at each other all night, and that was the story. Just home run swings back and forth, and I think Bama is probably comfortable with Beck having to force the ball downfield like that. But he made the plays to make the comeback happen, and then Jalen Milroe and Ryan Williams had to ruin the comeback for him, and then he almost came back again on him to try to tie the game. But I mean, just what a game! You had two teams just airing it out, and I'll tell you what. I don't know that either defensive coordinator is going to be particularly thrilled with how they played, but Bama still has to love coming out with a win in that. But again, Bama getting off to the explosive start, Georgia mounting the comeback, Bama throwing one last shot at the end of the game. I mean, just an insane game that I just think 19 explosive pass plays. You don't see that in very many football games.
Especially not with usually those defenses in Alabama and Georgia.
You got superstars in the secondary. Absolutely, for both teams.
Insane. So, yeah, my stat that tells the story is really Carson Beck again, and it kind of splits in the first and second half. Carson Beck, 52 passing grade in the first half, 81.2 in the second half. In the first half, Georgia was averaging negative .585 EPA per pass. Carson Beck was 8 for 18 in the first half with 100 yards and 2 picks. And in the second half, .27 EPA per pass, 19 for 33, 339 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. Dalton, in the first half of that game, there were so many people on Twitter, they're like, oh, Carson Beck, no way he's even drafted, let alone a first-round pick. And then the second half, it's like, oh, no, that's why he's a projected first-round pick in the NFL draft. But he settled into a rhythm. What I was so impressed by, it seemed like the wheels were coming off in the first half. Like, you could see, like, you can even see in his eyes, you're like, oh, boy, he's not feeling it right now. Second half, though, he came out, and he just started dealing, man. It's like, okay, that is what we need to see out of you. Like, sometimes a lot of those guys, and remember, they're in college, by the way. There's not pros out there. A lot of these guys in college, when the wheels come off, the wheels come off. It's over after that. Carson Beck, his composure was so impressive in that road environment. I understand they lost the game, but he never let the mistakes compound in that game. I was really, really impressed by Carson Beck, just how bad he was in the first half, and then to come back in the second half with that kind of comeback when 28-0, I mean, pretty much everyone, including myself, was like, okay, this game is over. And we even turned off the volume of that game to turn on the volume of the Penn State game. But, man, Carson Beck, again, he lost, and I understand that. We'll get into Jalen Monroe just a little bit. Trust me, I know. But I was really impressed by his composure in the second half, especially after how terrible the first half was.
And I know they lost the game. I think Georgia's going to benefit a lot from the second half and seeing what they are capable of in the passing game, because through the first 3 games, they had struggled big time in obvious passing situations, non-play action, third downs, things like that, getting the ball downfield. Carson Beck, we knew Carson Beck had the ability. That's not a question. And I think that is one of the better traits about him, is working through adversity. You remember last year when we were starting to doubt him, when Brock Bowers got hurt, he was out for a couple games. And before we had seen him without Bowers, we said, okay, it's prove it time for Carson Beck. Can he do it? And he goes out against, I believe it was Kentucky, and he put up like 60 points or whatever that was. He just had a crazy couple of games without Bowers, and even McConkey was playing, he was playing banged up all season. But that's one of the things with Beck. He just keeps his cool. We even saw it in the Clemson game earlier in this year. I mean, they put up, I think, was it 6 or 10 points in the first half? The first half against Clemson was ugly, and he just keeps punching. I mean, but I think for them to get explosive, to find those deep shots, that's what they needed. And again, they lost this game, but I really think the second half and the tape that they got in the second half of this game and the confidence that could come from it, understanding that, hey, if we can do this on Alabama, okay, we can quit screwing around and we can start getting vertical on teams. That's what was missing the first 3 games. That's the part that I was the most worried about coming into this game is, can Georgia make explosive plays? We know Bama can do it. They have Milroe. They have Ryan Williams. They have all their other receivers. They have Kalen DeBoer. That's what they do, right? Georgia coming out of this at least with that, even though it is a tough loss and it puts you behind the driver's seat here when it comes to, trying to make the SEC title game. But you could still make, especially with all of their opponents in front of them, you could still make the SEC title game with 1 loss. They still have Texas, Ole Miss, and Tennessee. It's all in their hands. To see Beck's ability to get vertical when he has to is really big for this Georgia team.
Honestly, and Dalton, another thing too, I understand. Again, he didn't play great. I know a lot of people in the chat are kind of mad at saying, oh, what are we talking about? Like, Beck wasn't great. Yes, he threw 3 picks. But he had 439 passing yards, and Arian Smith dropped that bomb in the first quarter. Dalton, he would have had 500 passing yards if Arian Smith caught that ball, honestly, which is insane.
Yeah, and there was the interception on the screen as well.
That was not his fault.
Where that wasn't his. Honestly, if that screen is run correctly and the route is there, they're going to score on that play.
Yeah.
There was a 0 blitz on it, and you had an entire convoy. You have Georgia's whole offensive line going at like 2 guys in the secondary. They would have scored on that play. So there was a level of execution all the way around that wasn't there for Georgia early on. But I think the way the second half went, and the way Beck played in the second half, he got him a lead, and then he almost brought him down again to tie it in 2 minutes. I think they should still not feel terrible about the way, about at least the way they played in the second half, right? And Kirby Smart, I should go in there saying, okay, because if they had come out of this and the second half went like the first half and they got blasted by 60, I think we'd be obviously a lot more worried about Georgia, and Kirby Smart would be back to the drawing board. But there is something. They're Georgia. Of course, there's something to work with here. And 1 loss, in this playoff environment, 1 loss like this especially doesn't kill your season at all.
All right, so we've done enough. I know the chat's kind of getting mad for praising Georgia and all that, and saying it's not over yet. We got to start talking about Alabama and how impressive they were in this game. So, Dalton, who for you was the most impressive part of this game for Alabama?
It has to be Ryan Williams.
Dude, he's unreal.
Listen, true freshman receivers are just a theme this year. 6 catches for 177 yards. And the 2 plays, the 2 deep balls, the one where he beat Starks and made the bobbling catch. And then the last play.
I forgot about that one, honestly, after the last one. Yeah.
You have a 17-year-old kid that torched the best safety in the country and made that play to concentrate on that deep ball and continue to go get another, 10, 12 yards after the catch. And then that last play, not just for a freshman, that last play to win the game,
unbelievable.
That's one of the best plays you'll ever see from a wide receiver. I can't even explain the level of footwork and body control after he made that catch to get back vertical, then still shake 2 tacklers, then finish off down the sideline. That's could he play in the NFL right now?
He could. He's a high school senior, by the way. I want to keep emphasizing that. He reclassified. He should be a high school senior now.
Those 2 plays alone made no sense. But, I mean, he had 177 yards, and the rest of Alabama's team had 197 receiving yards. I mean, he had almost half their receiving yards in an Alabama-Georgia game against an elite secondary, against Malachi Starks, against 5-star corners, all that stuff. And he's the best player on the field. And look, this year – a 92.1 receiving grade on 10-plus yard throws. That's the 9th best in the country right now. And he's tied with 2 other guys for the national lead. He's got a perfect deep grade, 99.9. This is the guy that Kalen DeBoer immediately recognized and went, oh, that's my deep threat. And in that offense, in Kalen DeBoer's offense with Jalen Milroe, we saw it with Michael Penix for the last 2 years. Ryan Williams, he's a real thing. He's one of the, 6 or 8 best receivers in the country right now.
Yeah.
It's insane, and we'll get to the other true freshman freak later. But these guys, it's crazy. You could argue he's top 5. I mean, the ability and what he's able to do vertically that young, and just such a perfect fit in Kalen DeBoer's offense. Ryan Williams might actually be the difference, because I think before the year we were talking Alabama as a playoff team, but I don't know that we were thinking about him so much as a national title contender, like the best team in the country. Ryan Williams could make them the best team in the country.
He could, honestly. And again, we were so not worried, but we're saying, okay, Isaiah Bond's gone. Who's the deep threat now? Ryan Williams is the deep threat. Yeah, he has been unbelievable. And Dalton, I said it before. Last night, honestly, when I was talking to you about it, I said, hey, with how young they are and how good they are, if they were eligible in the NFL draft this year, I would take Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams as the first 2 receivers off the board over anyone else in college football.
With the youth,
with how young they are.
With the youth and what they've showed at 17, 18 years old, I get it.
Like, what they're going to be as juniors, I think is better than what Burden and McMillan are going to be as juniors right now.
They're as good as those 2 guys right now as freshmen. It's nuts.
So I got to talk about the quarterback, Jalen Milroe, and specifically what he did against the blitz in this game. Because in our preview, I said, Georgia, blitz him. Blitz him, blitz him, blitz him. Get after him, get pressure on him. And why? Because he has a 63.2 passing grade against the blitz over the last 2 years, entering this weekend. So not great against the blitz. He proved me dead wrong last night. He gave a big middle finger to me, and that was really impressive by Jalen Milroe, because Dalton, Georgia blitzed him on 61% of his dropbacks. Last year, they blitzed him on 48% of his dropbacks, which again is a very, very high rate in that SEC title game. 61% last night. And how did he do against the blitz? 91.7 passing grade against the blitz, 17 for 20, 191 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, 2 big-time throws, 0 turnover-worthy plays. And what was most impressive, those numbers are all unbelievable. Dalton, last night, he got rid of the football 2.5 seconds average time to throw. That is nowhere close to the Jalen Milroe that we're used to, the guy that's going to hold on to the ball forever, for better or for worse, honestly. Take sacks and, of course, find guys deep downfield. He was getting rid of that football quickly last night. I was blown away by Jalen Milroe, and that's a career-high passing grade against the blitz, a maestro performance from Jalen Milroe, and that is the kind of performance that NFL GMs are going to look at and say, that is a first-round quarterback. That is why he could be a first-round pick. And honestly, right now he's a betting favorite to win the Heisman Trophy at, I believe, plus 200 right now. If he wins the Heisman Trophy, this is the Heisman game. Every single Heisman Trophy winner has a Heisman game. This is the Heisman game for Jalen Milroe. What a performance by Milroe against the blitz, the one area where he's not been great at his entire career, and against maybe the best team in the country, or one of the best teams in the country. He was unfreaking believable against the blitz. So shout out Jalen Milroe for proving me and everyone, and Kirby Smart, wrong as well, because he was unreal against the blitz, which we thought would be the key for Georgia winning the game.
Yeah, I'm with you, and that's the one thing you could feel it during the game is Jalen Milroe last night got rid of the ball quicker than I'd ever seen it, and absolutely just on time.
Yeah.
Hot routes against the blitz instead of running around against it. You mentioned that average time to throw in his 2 years now, year and a half as a starter at Alabama. That's his lowest average time to throw, and actually for as many explosive plays as there were in this game, his second lowest average depth of target. Only 8.6 yards. You could feel Milroe in control in the passing game, especially against the blitzes, just throwing over it. Calmly from the pocket, throwing over it, getting hot. You can see what Kalen DeBoer is doing with him right now. Last night, you just mentioned it. Last night is the first tape that should get put on for NFL scouts for Jalen Milroe if they want to see how good he can be.
Absolutely. So, yeah, unreal performance of Jalen Milroe, and shout out Alabama for winning that game and maybe the number one team in the country. We'll see.
True freshman, too, also outside of Ryan Williams.
Unreal.
This young group of Alabama corners, they're only going to get better as the year goes on. Their secondary, I'll tell you, obviously they lost Nick Saban, and he's the defensive back guru. That young secondary is coming, man.
Yeah.
They've got young kids who are playing really well, and I know they made some mistakes in the second half. It's going to happen, especially against a team like Georgia. Alabama's a problem. They are still a problem. No Nick Saban, and I'm sure Saban would do just as much with this team maybe as Kalen DeBoer, but what DeBoer's got him doing in his first year at Bama and getting to keep Milroe and then getting all of these young kids. And look, it's brave to put that many young kids out there, that many true freshmen out there, but they're all playing great right now.